morning. This is another one or possibly two episodes, if you like, in the series that I've been doing on the various aspects of the history of the Eucharist and the Parish for our yearly Eucharist and the Parish. And today, what I'd like to talk about is a couple of things. Last Saturday, it was the feast of Saints Sixtus II and companions. He was a bishop of Rome. His companions were deacons. They were arrested in the middle of the 3rd century, They were arrested while celebrating Mass at the catacombs, and they were hauled off and executed. 4 days later, one of the other deacons, St. Lawrence, was also executed. So let's go back to what they were doing in the catacombs. This is a little bit of what I would like to talk to you about. There's a legend that a lot of people grew up with, including me, that the Romans had no clue about the catacombs, and so Christians were able to hide in there, and that is completely wrong. Everybody knew about the catacombs. Everybody. That was not a reason for hiding or going in there. What were they doing? Well, you've got to understand that there was a practice, especially if you maybe were a little bit more wealthy of a family. Perhaps you had a little chapel in the catacombs, a little grotto of one kind or another. Perhaps you had even a little mausoleum somewhere nearby. There was a practice on the anniversary of a family's death to go and, so to speak, trim up the gravestones, clean up a little bit, and have kind of a sacrificial meal. And if the family was of a certain level of money, they oftentimes had a pipe that would go down to where the person was buried, where the cremated remains were buried. They'd pour some of the wine down there as a libation. So that was accompanied, and then they would sit around and have a meal, lunch, supper, whatever it would happen to be. Christians knew that, and they also knew that they could do the same kind of thing, looking like everybody else, but winding up celebrating Eucharist at the anniversary of the martyr who died. It was his birth to eternal life. So they could celebrate the Eucharist looking like other families. There were no such things as fancy vestments and mitres and all that in those days. You just came and did it. But somebody tipped off the Roman authorities, and Sixtus and his companions were arrested and martyred. So that's how that happened. It's kind of a bizarre story, but it is. Now, that also gives you an idea as to why the Eucharist was so often celebrated on the tombs of martyrs. That meant it was, so to speak, the tombs or the relics of martyrs that was being celebrated. Now, later on in the 5th and 6th, 7th centuries, when there were invasions of either Muslims at one point, the Saracens, or some of the barbarian hordes coming in from Germany or sweeping up through Africa, that was when some of these cemeteries were at great risk because they were outside the city walls. So the bishops of Rome brought in tremendous numbers of the bodies of the martyrs, and they put them in various churches as a way of safekeeping. One of the most famous ones, I think there's over 1,200 relics of martyrs, is in the Church of Santa Prassede, right around the corner from St. Mary Major in Rome. That became the sense of the distribution of relics to various churches. And it came to be the idea of having relics in the altars of all the churches. And that was true pretty much until, maybe the last 50 or 60, 70 years, when the church rules said that an altar, as long as it was consecrated, didn't have to have relics in it. And one of the reasons was to try to guarantee that whatever were called relics were actually relics, because you never know what somebody was selling to you. So that's the origin of what happened and how we come to be celebrating Mass on the particular days that we do. So I'm going to stop now, and I think part 2 is going to talk about how this applies to our liturgical calendar. Thank you.